Braving the Brightside is brought to you by Sonder Mountain Apparel Company. Apparel with a purpose, rooted in recovery, resilience, and wearing what you stand for. Have you ever walked into a conversation already knowing how it was going to end? You know what they're going to say. You know why they're wrong. You've got your rebuttal all ready to go. Hell, you've probably already had the entire argument in your head and won. And I think somewhere along the way, we stopped showing up to conversations to actually, listen. We show up waiting for that opening. That one sentence we can jump on. That moment where we can prove that we are right. And maybe, even more importantly, prove that they are wrong. We've turned disagreement into this stupid sports mentality where somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. Pick a side, defend your team, run up the score. But what the hell do we actually win? Because if I walk away having proven you wrong, but understanding you no better than I did before, neither one of us grew. Maybe the most important conversations aren't supposed to have winners and losers. Maybe they're supposed to leave us understanding each other and maybe even ourselves a little better than we did before. And maybe some conversations aren't meant to be won at all. Maybe, just maybe, they're just meant to be had. My name is Dan Bradley, and this is Braving the Brightside. Hello, Brightsiders, and welcome to another ultimate edition of, The Brightside. And this one actually is kind of an ultimate edition because, apparently, we've been cooking, as the kids say. I think they let them cook, is what they said. Listen, the point is, since the last time we talked, there have been a lot of things going on around here. And some really, really exciting things happening for the future of the Brightside. For example, you literally just heard it about 2 minutes ago. We have our first official sponsor of the show, Sonder Mountain Apparel Company. I couldn't be more excited about that partnership, and you're going to be hearing plenty more about it. But number one on this list, arguably number one, I told you I was going to do it. It finally happened. We have a website. BravingTheBrightside.org is officially your home for all things Brightside. You'll find links to episodes, Brave docs, clips, and applications, and a full-fledged Brightside shop featuring our newly revealed merchandise in partnership with Sonder Mountain. You can also sign up to become an official Brightsider. Although, let's be real here. You've always been a Brightsider in my heart. It's completely free, and when you sign up, you'll get a monthly newsletter written by yours truly, behind-the-scenes content, early access to live events, and even some free gifts along the way. So swing by BravingTheBrightside.org, poke around, put your head in a couple doors, and let me know what you think, will you? Because we're going to keep building this Brightside movement. Onward and upward, my friends. Okay, enough business talk. Let's get to our sweet, sweet dopamine fix, shall we? I believe it is time for the feel-good news segment. Braving the Brightside is brought to you by Sonder Mountain Apparel Company. Apparel with a purpose, built around recovery, resilience, and wearing what you stand. All right, this is the part of the show where we take a break from the chaos and remind ourselves that there are still a lot of good people doing incredible things in this world. So let's shine a little light on some stories that deserve it, shall we? This is your feel-good news segment. A security guard's tiny rhinos become a campus tradition. At Virginia Tech, security guard Brian Newton started 3D printing miniature rhinos as prizes for a little guessing game among coworkers. But then he started customizing them for whatever event was happening: a warrior rhino for wrestling, dancing rhinos for dance performances, and witch rhinos for Halloween. Some would take 12 hours to make. What started as coworkers' killing time has turned into a beloved little tradition that regular visitors now look for when they arrive. His explanation is quite perfect. It brings joy, and it's a lot of fun. Number 7, this is pretty cool because I was fortunate enough to be there to witness this in person. A 99-year-old woman's baseball pioneer refuses to miss history. Maybelle Blair, who played professional baseball in 1948, was determined to attend the inaugural Women's Professional Baseball League games in Springfield. One problem: the 99-year-old had recently broken 4 ribs. Didn't matter. She arrived in a wheelchair and threw out the ceremonial first pitch, saying nothing was going to keep her away, even if she had to crawl there. The league's mascot is even named Maybelle in her honor, and it's pretty amazing. It's exactly what you'd expect. It's almost like a Philly Fanatic version of her. It's great. After witnessing the return of women's professional baseball more than 7 decades after her own league disappeared, Blair called it the happiest day of my life. I was there to witness all of this history, and I got to tell you, I was pretty sure there wasn't a dry eye in that entire stadium. It was amazing. Number 6, Mayor Mamdani is sending thousands of New York City kids to Broadway. Well, it was only a matter of time, but Zohran Mamdani has finally made the list. On August 13th, Mayor Mamdani and the Theater Development Fund announced thousands of free and low-cost Broadway tickets for New York City high school students to close out the summer. In a world, country, whatever you want to call it, that seems to get more and more expensive if you want to do anything at all. This comes from a baseball fan who can't even afford to go to the All-Star game or anything. I really like this because experiencing theater is the same thing. It shouldn't be something reserved exclusively for families who can drop hundreds of dollars on tickets. For some kid who has never even seen a Broadway show, this could be the afternoon that makes them think, holy shit, I want to do that someday. It's a pretty awesome opportunity disguised as entertainment. Number 5, a blind horse keeps winning dressage competitions. Milo is a 15-year-old Appaloosa who went completely blind at 13. His owner, Megan Scher, initially stopped riding him because she wasn't sure it would ever be safe again. But then they figured out another way. Milo uses the feeling of different surfaces beneath his hooves. Hooves? Hooves. Hooves? Hooves. Okay, moving on. His increasingly sensitive hearing and constant communication from Megan's hands and legs to navigate the course. She describes their system as equine-braille. And Milo isn't merely participating. He's winning. He has continued competing successfully in dressage despite being completely blind and is now preparing for major qualifiers. That's a Brightside story all day long. The circumstances changed, so they changed the way forward. Number 4 is a fun one. Kazakhstan has a wild tiger again after 70 years. And of course, adorably, her name is Hope. Tigers disappeared from Kazakhstan more than 70 years ago. In 2018, the country began an enormous restoration project, establishing a nature reserve, rebuilding prey populations, and working internationally to prepare the ecosystem for their return. And this month, a female Amur tiger named Hope was fitted with a GPS collar, transported to the reserve, and released. She jumped from the container and disappeared into the landscape. For the first time in more than 7 decades, a tiger is roaming that ecosystem again. 3 additional tigers are currently being prepared for potential release. That's not preservation. That is absolutely restoration for the earth. Number 3, a new treatment produces remarkable results in toddlers with muscular dystrophy. This is one of the week's generally exciting medical stories. Researchers studied a drug called vamorolone in 20 boys between ages 2 and 4 with muscular dystrophy, a devastating genetic disease that progressively destroys muscle. After just 12 weeks at the higher dose, average gross motor scores rose from roughly 5 to 8, approaching the score of around 10 expected in healthy children. No serious adverse events were reported in the study. Number 2, an emotional support duck gives a golden retriever her spark back. All right. Barley is a 7-year-old golden retriever with epilepsy. Medication controlled her seizures, but her family says she's become sleepy, withdrawn, and lost the playful personality they'd always known. Then, Louie the duck showed up. Louie had hatched at a local elementary school and was originally supposed to stay with the Barley's family only temporarily. And that didn't happen. Barley became fascinated with him. They started hanging out, stealing each other's food and playing together. And Barley's owner noticed something remarkable. She started wagging her tail again. She started playing. And she started smiling again. Her family now refers to Louie as Barley's emotional support duck. Animals, man, they're the best. And number 1, though the names associated with this one is kind of okay, but there's no denying what has been done. Number 1 is Leonardo DiCaprio and the Bezos Earth Fund commit $200 million to save 100 species. This gets number 1 because of, well, sheer scale, really. Leonardo DiCaprio's conservation organization, I think it's like Rewild, whatever. And the Bezos Earth Fund have committed a combined $200 million towards the Phoenix Species Project. The mission helped bring 100 of the world's most threatened species back from the brink of extinction across 30 countries. Here's what I particularly like. Rather than throwing money at a flashy one-year campaign so it looks good in the newspapers, are people still reading newspapers? That was such an old man thing to say. The project is designed to provide 5 years of sustained support for each species, giving conservationists the time and stability necessary to actually attempt recovery. We're talking mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish, plants, and invertebrates. Invertebrates, everybody, including species most people have probably never even heard of. Because saving something shouldn't depend on whether it's cute enough to put on a t-shirt or a website. 100 species that were staring down extinction just got $200 million fighting chance. That's pretty damn good news. Boy, howdy, and that is your feel-good news segment. Yeah, I hope it hit hard. I hope you got that dopamine hit that we all are looking for. All right, let's jump into today's interview, shall we? If there's one thing I've learned doing this show, it's that sometimes the conversations you expect to go in one direction end up taking you somewhere completely different. And honestly, those are usually my favorite kind of conversations. River Easter has spent years studying what happens when people with different perspectives, different needs, and different experiences are asked to somehow find common ground. But what I really enjoyed about talking with River is that this never felt like a lesson in how to win an argument. It became a much bigger conversation about how we communicate, why we react the way we do, the stories we tell ourselves about other people, and what can happen when we bring a little more curiosity and humanity into the room. And as you're about to hear, I definitely recognized a few of my own tendencies along the way. So whether there's a conversation you've been avoiding, a relationship you've been struggling with, or you just occasionally find yourself rehearsing an argument in your head that happened 6 hours ago, I think there's something in this one for you. Brightsiders, let me introduce you to River Easter. Every one of us has a conversation we've been avoiding. Maybe it's with a spouse, a friend, a coworker, a family member, or maybe even ourselves. We know we need to have it, but fear, resentment, uncertainty, or even pride keeps us stuck. Today's guest has built her life's work around helping people navigate those exact moments through conflict resolution, communication, and a deep understanding of what drives human behavior. She helps people find common ground in places where it often feels impossible. I'm excited for this conversation because I think every single listener is going to walk away with something they can use immediately. Please welcome River Easter to Braving the Brightside. River, how are you today?
I'm really, really grateful for being here and just being a guest on your podcast, contributing to your community because, wow, what a wonderful purpose, to how to be a bright light in a world that is one, there's a lot of scarcity. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty, which of course brings up people's vulnerability.
Mm,
And so how do you actually be that person in the world that comes in with love versus fear?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
really, I think, boils down. I mean, it's sort of a very simple thing. We could just walk away with that, really.
yeah. It is really simple. You would think it's, you know, difficult how hard, sometimes the world kind of operates more so on fear and hardship, but
Yeah.
it really is a baseline simplicity of humanity.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to listen. Let's let the people get to know you. So for those of you, for people out there who don't know who you are and what you do, why don't you give us a brief explanation of what you're doing out there in the world?
The first thing that I call myself a business coach and also a life coach. I have a master's in organization development. And what led me into organization development was that my undergraduate degree, I did a lot of stakeholder meetings. And when I was I was in the environmental field, and we were trying to figure out what to do with these national forest lands, the national forests that all of you know, and there were a lot of people that wanted to use it in a particular way. There was a lot of changes happening. And just imagine yourself, whenever there's change happening, what happens to, we even, we want to hold on to what is the past. So it was a charged environment, these stakeholder meetings. And my job was, as when I went in, I ended up, well, I was in consulting first, then I went into uh, I went into the Forest Service,
Great.
and it was, how do we use these forests for our greater good, for the greater good of all? And that really stuck with me, was for the greater good.
Yeah.
That is really what we're all about, is how can we be on this planet and make an impact that's for the greater good.
Mm,
And for me, that's really important. It's like, I want to leave this world. My mission is to help all beings thrive. And I do right now, I'm currently doing it through coaching others. And I have a lot of science background that I bring in, and I also bring in different spiritual principles. So sort of the nexus between the two. And I love neuroscience, so I have different training and education in that.
wow. Fascinating. So that's interesting in terms of the journey that you had being in those rooms, kind of like you said, those emotionally charged rooms kind of helped carve you out for the path that you wanted to go down to help other people. And especially in terms of helping people communicate, right?
Yeah, because well, and it was also my path too, right?
Yeah.
My path in my own personal life. How I mean, was in relationships that really didn't work. And so, you remove yourself from the situation and go somewhere else, but wherever you go, there you are. And you end up
Mhm.
characters that really are the ones that are going to teach you a lesson, change shapes, change gender, but have you ever had sort of, you find yourself in the exact same situation or very similar? Because there's a lesson there for you to learn
Yeah.
and being able to work your way through. And I think this is I don't know if I'm making any sense here. It's really an internal process. Is if you could really if we could become more self-aware of what our internal process is, that it's going to help us have a conversation that's more meaningful for us.
Hmm. Yeah. That makes absolute sense.
And that's like, I want to say, like let me just give you an example. Okay.
Okay.
And we might be jumping through these questions that we had decided, but I feel like I just said something that I need to explain.
Now, jump through.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's
Okay.
get crazy.
Okay, great. So say for example, I had a client. She was working on a team. Her team met one of her team it was a big project. She's an architect and they do large scale um buildings.
Hmm.
And one of her team members didn't come through. And so she was meeting with the client and she didn't have the information that she needed. So she felt like, here I am. I'm the forward facing person. I'm going to meet with the client and I don't have the information that I need because that person on my team didn't do what he said that he was going to do. And, just imagine how you would feel in that moment, right? You feel angry, but really you're feeling like, wow, that person didn't really care enough about me and appreciate my situation. Or you could, there's another really, I feel maybe betrayed. I think that's a really common one is
Mm.
I feel betrayed.
Yeah.
And so really the first thing to do with yourself is to validate your feelings. And so give yourself, that's like a superpower is actually empathy.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
being able to empathize and say, wow, that really was hurtful. I felt betrayed, so you kind of you validate your needs. And then the other is that you ask yourself what you're really wanting. What was your need there? And uh and that's really once we validate what our feelings are, we can get down to what is our need.
Hmm.
And this is where I think most people can find common ground. Right? Most of us, if we really go into a conversation and we're really clear about what our needs are, that our needs, and I always call them your beautiful need, and there's a saying in, um, what I'll think of it, but it's like, if you give people the benefit of a doubt, like they may say it in a way that is either unskilled, right? Or, it's either a call for love or an act of love.
Mm. Interesting.
And most of us are very unskilled at
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
We're not raised around people who really know, and we're not given any models. We're given models of exactly the opposite about how to really empathize with someone. And empathy doesn't mean that you agree with them.
Right. Right.
That's one of the really important things
Mhm.
about empathy is like somebody, my husband, 'cause I'm just going to take a spouse because, right, we all get into differences of opinions with
Yeah.
our significant others. And he may get really upset with me about something that's really important to me. I can let him know, I can guess what his needs are. Oh, you're really frustrated. You're thinking that is you don't feel prepared or something like that. You just guess at what their needs are, because they're gonna say, "No, I don't feel like that. I feel like this." And then you can get down to what they're, what you can, again, once you identify what their needs are, or what their validate their feelings, without agreeing. Like, I don't have to agree with my husband is right on this. I just need to validate how he's feeling, and then guess at what his needs really are, and
Mm.
then finding out where our needs can actually, um, we can get to a sweet spot, I call it.
Right. So you almost have to acknowledge the emotion that they're going through. And once you acknowledge that, then you kind of come together moment where you figure out, okay, well, I may not agree with you, but I can meet you somewhere in this conversation to an
Yeah.
understanding. That's interesting.
So I might be like, I'm very direct. And so, and that might really turn some people off. They don't like that. It feels like I'm telling them what to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so you just have to like kind of work through this stuff. And if you come from more of a empathy, but back to the person that had this, she had this person, um, and she knew she needed to have a conversation with them because she wasn't feeling like there was a tension, that awkward conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this awkward, it's like you're feeling, you have these feelings of resentment for this person because they didn't come through. Now you're not trusting them. So what do, right, at that moment? Well, she was avoiding the conversation.
Hmm.
And again, there's a saboteur out there in positive intelligence. It's like the part of your brain that it really started out as a strength, but then we overused it. And then it's based in fear. It's based in survival. And so it uses a part of our brain that is fear-based. Whereas if we can move more into a sage brain, which is where our wisdom is, our creativity, empathy, love, that's where we want to begin these conversations with. And so activate knowing when you're in that place of I'm avoiding, I'm having these negative conversations about this person, that's when you know that. I mean, have you ever had a conversation with somebody or, in your head about what they're thinking? You're blaming them, you're going on and on. You're
All the
making up
time.
all this stuff about them, right? You're judging them. Well,
Yeah.
that's master saboteur is your judge, or
Mm.
you judge yourself, either self-criticism, you judge others, or you judge the circumstance. But anyway, so she's having all these conversations whenever she thinks about him in her head. And so that's when you're in the wrong side of your brain, the wrong region of your brain, if you will. And you need to take a couple of deep breaths and to activate this sage region of your brain.
Mm.
It's very simple to do. It's actually, I do these 3 deep breaths, and we can do a demonstration of it right now on this podcast if you want.
Let's do it. I love it.
Okay, so we take a nice deep breath. If you can close your eyes, that's the best. You
I'll
don't
close
have
my eyes.
to, but close your eyes. And then we focus on our physical sensations, and we take 3 nice deep breaths. And I like to breathe in through my nose
Mhm.
into my belly. And then when I breathe out through my mouth as if I'm breathing out through a straw. So we'll do one of those together and then do 2 more at your own pace.
Okay,
Okay?
let's do it.
So let's start with breath 1. Breathe in through your nose into your belly. And then breathe out through your mouth as if you're breathing out through a straw. And then 2 more at your own pace. And then let your breath go back to its natural rhythm and just notice the rising and falling of your chest or stomach with each breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes.
That's great.
So you can see how do you feel a sense of relaxation?
Yeah.
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 So once you've just essentially activated that portion of your brain that has your creativity, has your purpose, it has love, has basically your superpowers are in
Mhm.
that side of your brain. And feel that sense of relaxation. And just because of our physiology, we cannot be in a fear-based place and the sage brain at the same time, which is good news, right?
Right,
So
right.
get to
Mm.
that place of relaxation because you're going to have, a higher cognitive function. So then you can ask yourself, what is it? What's my real intention in this conversation? To have this? What do I really want to achieve? And who am I being? Because it's really important that you want to say, who am I being in this? Am I open? Am I uh, compassionate in this moment? Am I focused? Really, who you're being is your greatest use of self, your
Mm.
greatest place of transformation.
Yeah.
Because if going in there, you know, all upset and blaming that person, that is not going to, you're going to put the person on defensive and
Is
you're
there
not.
most There's a lot of people go into conversations like this just trying to be right or just trying to be the one that's on top, so to speak. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of times, especially when there's emotion involved in a conversation like this, like the example that you're using, it's more so than just anger or blame. I feel like it's like, well, no, I have to prove, like there's more so proving that I'm right, and then I feel like that blocks all idea of empathy or understanding.
That is such a great point, Daniel, because we've, just like you said, we've shut down any ability to see something from somebody else's shoes,
Right.
right? To be alongside them and get to know them. And I know in organizations, it's a really big thing
Hmm.
as if you're always trying to dominate the conversation, do you feel like you have to be right? Then it's not going to, you're not going to be able to solve maybe a problem that's a structural problem,
Right.
right?
Right.
Or a process problem or a role problem or communicate, how they have set up their communication structure,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things that you'll get shut out of. And I think the other thing, the more important thing is that you'll miss like really the ability to really help or connect with somebody. Uh, and what I would say, like if you have a boss or if you have someone that is uh, comes at you with, you know, thinking that they have to be right, how do you feel about that person? And you want to kind of avoid them,
Right.
and you also want to blame them. I mean, there's no space, if you will.
Well, that's
And
where empathy is so huge, right? I mean, you just nailed it. When what I like about what you're saying and your technique that you have here is it's especially when like for me, like knowing spousal arguments and then also work. Those are two, I think, the most common examples most human beings can relate to with that.
Mhm.
And I love that that empathy can be used as a way to soften one's shields, to approach a problem, you know what I mean, with a little bit of humanity and a little bit more understanding. Um, and I think that's, I think that's why empathy is so powerful and so important in this world of, well, empathy gets looked at as weakness, and that's not, obviously not the case at all.
Right. Right. And I think that empathy has a misunderstanding because people think, well, I used to think, okay, I had to forgive someone, and that they had actually done something that wasn't okay.
Yeah.
And this was the same, like, I mean, I was at a point one time with my husband that I did not think that we were going to make it. Like, I was done
Mhm.
over. There was no way I could forgive him, right? And and it took a these kinds of conversations for us to really move through it, but also to understand that I don't need to forgive him. And I mean, this is maybe a bad, I can forgive that person, but I don't have to condone what they did.
Mm. Yeah. That's interesting.
And so that's really important. So, and empathy is the same. You don't have to, you can have empathy for someone, but not condone what they did or not agree with them.
Right. Right. Mhm. I get that. As a comic book nerd, I
Oh,
will use this as an example, but like a lot of the great villains in comic book stories that you hear, like Doctor Doom and Thanos, whatever. That's what makes a great villain a great villain. And even in movies too, is that they pull on that emotion that you just touched on. They pull on empathy, where you're like, I mean, I can understand where they're coming from. Like they witnessed this atrocity, or they
yeah.
are trying to make this world a better place, but you're
Hmm.
in no way condoning the way they try to go about it or the way they handle it, and I think that's a really good point. I think that's, you can hold two truths there. You can understand, you can have empathy for a human being without blindly going along with them or accepting what they did as okay, and I think
Yeah.
people need to hear that. People need to understand that now more than ever, that it's okay to have empathy and also hold somebody to their own truth, as damning as it
Yeah.
may be.
I think too, I mean, we'll get back to this, you know, the intention of your conversation, but um, I think that's really important to understand that somebody else's truth isn't in opposition to mine.
Mhm.
If I think about it, we're all these little puzzle pieces, right? On in the world, we all fit together. But if we're not really in our truth, not, and what I mean by our truth is like ours, right?
Right.
Like who we
Right.
really are, who our values are, our alignment, with that our actions are in alignment with our values.
Mhm.
And if I'm thinking that I have to fit in and be out of alignment with my values, then I'm not going to be in my puzzle piece, right?
Right.
Um, but if somebody else is like says, "Well, this is my truth," you you can say, "Okay, I get that. That's your truth, and this is mine." this is my truth and it gets me to where I'm in alignment. So it doesn't mean that, because there's so many different the people have different values, people have different religions,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the idea is actually the more diversity that you have in ecosystems, the more diversity, the stronger the ecosystem is. And I really rely on my science background in ecosystems as like it's the same for human beings,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're part of this world.
And
Yeah.
that's such an important thing for people to hear nowadays too, because I feel like nowadays we're so embroiled that because somebody thinks a certain way or celebrates something a certain way is immediately an attack on what I'm feeling and my truth. And, just because there's so many facets of our society now that is like right down the middle. It's yes or no, good or bad, black or white. Like
Yeah.
that's just not the case. Like not everything is an attack on your own beliefs. Like people can sit in their own truths while you
Yeah.
have your own, like you just said.
Yeah.
And I feel like that gets lost a lot of time nowadays is, people are reacting to, oh my God, they didn't write this on a Starbucks cup. So that means it's an attack on, on this holiday or this,
Yeah.
like it's crazy. And people
Yeah.
take that and run with that and forget that as a society, like you just said, we are all better off when we're kind of a melting pot and we all, hold our own truths, but then also respect the fact that other people have theirs. And I think that's so important now, honestly, that people keep forgetting that.
Yeah. It really is because I have a particular belief. I don't want someone else to be telling me that I'm supposed to believe a particular way,
Right.
right? I'm thinking about religion, right?
Mhm.
And um, somebody's saying, "Well, you shouldn't believe that." I'm thinking, "Well, that's what I believe in, and I want to have the freedom, and that's what is freedom is, right? Is like the freedom to believe in what you value and what
Right.
you think is important, and to get curious
Hmm.
about people, and what they actually why that is valuable for them, because once you understand what's valuable for them and why it's valuable for them, then you can understand it more, right? You
So
can
true.
be like, "Hey, I get that I can see why, based on your experiences in life and your background, why that would be important for you."
Hmm. Well, and I
So
think that speaks to what you just said too, but early in the conversation, bringing it back is approaching with empathy, right? And
yeah.
that's arguably the biggest problem is a lot of people do not approach things with empathy anymore. And
Mhm.
we have, I try not to get too specific on my podcast here, but we have certain
Yeah.
individuals in charge of certain things in this country that look at empathy as weakness and teach others and have tweeted things that lack empathy or, you know, perhaps there's an insurrection where there's no empathy. I'm not going into details, but what I'm trying to say
Yeah.
is we live in a society right.
We're dancing around it.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is there's a certain administration that puts out a certain image and reinforces that image through their words, through their tweets, through their press conferences of just blatant, just not having empathy towards anybody else who doesn't fall in line with what they look like, what they sound like, what they preach, what their religion is. And it's a staunch betrayal of what this country really is and is based on what has worked for this country and what the idea is land of the free, right? This 250th anniversary of America, 250th year of freedom. But don't look over there. We're burning books in Florida, or we're going to put the 10 commandments up in the schoolroom. We're supposed to have that. This is a Christian nation. You can't preach anything else here. Or I'm, I'm going off on a tangent, but what I'm saying is I love what you're saying is there needs to be an understanding when you approach a conversation with empathy, because you learn about what other, and then you find out that a lot of these people that we seem so hell bent on persecuting is they're just trying to live their lives like us. And there is an understanding you get to with empathy.
And I think that's a really important part, because it's so easy when somebody is ag feels so against us, and that we're feeling like, "Oh my god, they're taking away my rights," that is, and blaming it on others. So the and that's really when our saboteurs go crazy. So they go crazy. The judge comes in and just is like, "This is bad, bad, bad," and they're bad, and 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 we get in fear, this
Hmm.
fear and uncertainty, and then one, it's bad for our health, for one, and it is not bringing us together to what is really important and what really
Right.
matters
Right.
to. And so being able to have more empathy to say, okay, I'm getting really curious, like what, because I think that people have a different, they have, like, what I know about most people, I have family members that have a different, spiritual beliefs, different
Mhm.
ideologies than I do. But what I know deep down is that they care about people, they're good people, they wanna have a good life, so really, we all want to be safe, we all want our children
Right.
to grow up in safety, we want our children to be educated, we want our children to thrive, and, we wanna be able to have a life where if we work hard, that we will have the
Hmm.
benefits of a society that keeps us safe, right? And that we have the freedom to believe what we want to believe and to have our own spiritual practices, all that, right? So I think on that level, we all have the same. It's just that we have different strategies to get there. So going back to a conversation where we can have it in our own personal lives, right? To use this to our advantage. So if somebody in your life just like had a team member, or they're a manager or an employee or even their spouse, you can say, "What is my intention for this conversation?" And your intention, like when we really talk with my client and asked her a few questions about to get clear on her intention. It was to build trust in the relationship, to have a better working relationship, so that they could have a effective team. And so she went into this conversation, she asked permission to have the conversation. She said, "I have something that really matters to me, that I would like to have a conversation with you. And the purpose of the conversation is for us to build trust and to have a better working relationship. When would be a good time to talk?" So what if I went to you and said, your wife came to you and said, "Hey, I have something that really matters to me that I want to talk to you about. And the intention is to build, to have better connection and intimacy and trust in our relationship.
Mm.
When would be a good time for you to talk? Would you be willing to have this conversation?"
Yeah, 100%.
You'd be like, "Holy shit, I'm in the doghouse, right? I want to know what's going
Yeah.
on."
Yeah. I don't want to stay here at all. Now,
Exactly.
obviously, like, sometimes the knee jerk reaction is like, what did I do? What the fuck what are you talking about? But I guess my next question is, now with that technique you have in mind that you've explained, what if you enter a conversation and that person is just opposing you, or is not de-escalating, or is just not working with you? Is there, There's only so much you can do at that point, right? Do you take 3 more breaths? Do you just kind of like, all right, well, I've laid out what I need to get from you. If you don't want to
I
align
think
with that,
that's I think that's really that's a great question. And again, you're you're you want to always go back to what your intention is, and that it takes, I mean, this isn't something for the faint-hearted.
yeah,
It
yeah,
it requires work,
it's
essentially.
easier said than done for sure.
Yeah, it's really, and so just you wanna start this very small, like at small conversations, not, the don't take the huge elephant
Right.
in the.
Do you have a surprising do you have an example that was the most surprising in terms of how this worked? You're like, "Oh, man, I can't believe."
Yeah, I think I do, and it's always with my husband, because, of course, we're very opposite,
Mhm.
and, I mean, he came into my life, of course, to teach me some really good lessons that I needed to learn, and it was easier to blame him than to really understand, plus we don't really have any framework for this, right? The thing that really was my belief that I had from my childhood was that I did something wrong. Like if somebody got mad at me, it meant that I had done something wrong and that I was going to get hurt. And so anytime anybody would come at me with anger, would get really mad, that would just cause me to go into my saboteur,
Mhm.
like, oh my God, I have to protect myself. I have to either try to fix this, ameliorate
Fight or
this.
flight, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, or, fawn or freeze, they call it too.
Yeah.
And of course, who do I attract into my life? My husband is an attorney, and he's not only just an attorney, he's like a litigation attorney.
Oof, yeah.
Yeah, and so he was very good at fighting, and I wasn't. I was very good at either ignoring or fleeing, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
same.
so
Believe me, I feel
I
that.
yeah, so my thing was being able to stand in my truth even in the face of anger, and then I noticed that, "Oh, okay, what if I said something different?" And this is really important. A really important technique to do is to visualize saying something different. So, how many people wake up? I mean, do you wake up and say at 3 o'clock in the morning and kind of replay all your cringe worthy moments?
Oh, yeah, I have the greatest hits that plays every
Yeah,
morning.
I love it. Your greatest hits. Well, stop that.
Okay.
Stop it right now.
Sounds great. I would love to.
Yeah, what you want, it's not, it's like you're using your brain in against you.
Mm,
So what you want to do is, one, notice when you're doing it, forgive yourself immediately. Just say, I'm going to release that. I'm going to take a deep breath and just say, I'm going to forgive myself for being unskillful in that moment and not living up to my expectation of who I want to be. Okay. So that's the first thing to do. The second is to, how would I have loved to responded in this situation? If I was at my living, coming from my best self, coming from my values, coming from the person who I want to be. And you put in that scenario and you let that scenario run through to an outcome that you would have loved. And the reason why you want to do this is because that visualization just activates parts of your brain that will make it more likely that it will happen in
mm,
that way. Like you'll remember it because you're building, instead of building the neural pathways that are the negative ways that you don't want to respond, you're building neural pathways that you do want to respond.
that makes sense. Yes, you're building like a happier bridge and a more,
Exactly.
you know,
And you're,
G
you,
bridge, if you will.
yeah. Yeah, so that's what I had to do. I said, after, an interaction where I would, behave in a way that was based on my old self, I would say, what would I want? How would I really want to respond here? If I was really living in my truth, speaking my truth, and especially if we feel backed in a corner or we feel blamed or we feel defensive.
Well, that was going to be so going through your everything you're teaching, everything you're coaching, everything you've introduced to the world. So you teach something called the sweaty 10-minute conversation. So immediately I was like, what is that? I'm
Mhm.
immediately intrigued. So great name. Where did that come from? Did that come from just life, from you being married to, like, explain to people what the sweaty 10
Okay,
minute
so the
conversation
sweaty
is?
10-minute conversation is something that was named by my mentor, who was Mary Morrissey. Yeah. But it
Okay.
also mirrors the NVC conversation that you would
Mhm.
have where you make an observation and so it's the same steps with it.
When you say
Not
NVC, you mean the
Yeah, nonviolent
nonviolent conversation,
communication. Yeah,
communication.
because, you
Sorry.
wanna
Yeah.
validate your feelings, validate other feelings, even if you don't agree with them, you're still validating them. Get down to what you really need. Like, what I really needed there was I needed communication, right? What
Right.
I, was really needing was choice. I needed choice in that matter, whatever that is. And you just guess. And I have a feelings and needs that I have that for people who would like that. Um, and to help in identifying, 'cause it's a different language, really. Uh,
Yeah.
then once you acknowledge that, and then you make a request of the other person.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Um, Very cool. Well, so I mean, I guess like talking to you here now, and only so because a lot of the examples you're giving, I also hear my own words and my own, I come to my own examples of my own life. How often are we actually arguing with someone else versus arguing with our own internal narrative? You know, um, like that's kind of like a big thing that I go through is, am I going in there with already with an answer that this is fact, this is true, and then the fact that I'm having a conversation with somebody that doesn't agree with that or might be pushing back against that, I immediately am, you know, pushing back as well. And that's, I guess ego, really.
And again, that comes back to what was, how, again, empathizing with yourself. What was I really feeling? Because they could have hurt you, right? In some way.
Hmm.
And what was I really needing in that moment? Because
Right.
that is, that's so important to get that and to be curious and using why questions, like, why did you do that? That's not a good question. Instead, because a why question brings up defensiveness, but a what question is much more
Hmm.
open,
Yeah. Yeah.
much more generative. So you want to bring in more generative questions and more curiosity. And again, to be curious, you need to go into your sage brain.
Have you ever seen Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
That's what made me think of talking to you was it be curious, not judgmental is what he says,
Yeah.
which I love. It's a great line.
So we all have our saboteurs, and this was a landmark, really cutting edge
Hmm.
research where they did a core factor analysis. So, like when you do a core factor analysis, you find, like when you did a core factor analysis with colors, you get down to there's only 3 colors that create the whole rainbow. And so the core factor analysis that they did was they used neuroscience, they used positive psychology, performance science, and cognitive behavior therapy. And they wanted to know what are the core factors that are impacting your performance, impacting your relationships, and impacting your well being. And they had over 500,000 people do the test. And these were CFOs, CEOs, athletes, academics, that everybody. Okay. And they came up with these 10 negative factors, which are in your saboteur region of your brain. That's when you know you are, if you're in a negative emotion. It's like putting your hand on a hot stove. It's hot. You're full of anxiety, but you're not taking your hand away. You're just like you're
Hmm.
re-listening or replaying in your mind all of those cringeworthy moments, right? Well, you have your hand on a hot stove. What happens when you keep your hand on a hot stove?
Burn the shit out of your hand.
It burns more, right? So you need to like pull it off the hot stove. And how you do that is through those 3 nice deep breaths.
Wow. Okay. Very cool.
Okay. Pause, pull your hand off by noticing that oh my God, look at, I'm in all this anxiety here. I notice that, I pause, I take 3 nice deep breaths and focus on my physical uh, sensations and not all the thinking. And then I can then say, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to stop that and remember to replay how I would want to. That's in alignment with me. And then there's, you have 5 positive factors, or yeah, 5 positive factors, and they're your superpowers. The biggest one is empathy. And then there's like explore, there's navigate. Anyway, there's different ones that you can use. And navigate is like that you can ask the question, if you go and you think somebody is so wrong, one of the things you can say is like, I'm going to go in that this person and the answer that they have or their strategy is 10% right.
Mm.
I'm just going to go in that they're 10% right. And then I'm going to acknowledge something that I can see positive. This takes a little bit of work because you're like, okay, I have to see something that is positive about this person. And then I can say something, it may take a lot to say that, right? But you can find something
Yeah.
positive. You really can. And then you can say, and it made me think of this. And you can, identify what you think. Like they can say something like, I thought about starting a podcast. And you're thinking, this guy can't start a podcast. He's already doing 5 trillion things. And he's so stressed out and he wants to start a podcast. I'm just spitballing here.
No, you nailed me perfectly.
And,
That's perfect.
okay. And he wants more time and he's starting a podcast. Like, he's crazy, right? But what you can say is like, wow, I really like the idea that you you want to start a podcast to share your ideas with others,
Mhm.
right? And it made me think of this person who started to look at things, to actually write things down, that topics that were important to him. I could say
Yeah.
something like that. And then you just start building out on these ideas. It's really good to do in teams and things
Hmm.
like that, to build on ideas. It's with anything. It's like, so the saboteur, getting back, sorry, I went off on a tangent. So the saboteur assessment is where you actually answer a few questions. It only takes maybe 7 to 10 minutes to do it. And you get your saboteurs. And then if one of the things I would love to offer your community is the saboteur assessment for free. And then we get together and I help you unpack it and
Very
how
cool.
it may be impacting your life, because they are impacting your life in some way. And so no matter what, if it's in your performance, in your relationships, your well-being, once you start becoming aware and how you can actually minimize them and activate your sage, you're going to have more, happiness. Really, you're going to increase everything in your life.
Hmm. Yeah, your quality of life will go way up. That's awfully kind of you. So you're going to offer that for free. I'll put that in the description of the episode. Put the link there so people
Yeah,
can take it.
that would be awesome.
I mean, if you're listening at home or in your car, wherever you are, that's pretty amazing. You should jump all over that when you park the car, not while you're driving.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's cool. That's amazing. Well, listen, what would you say if someone out there right now is carrying resentment, hurt, or fear towards a conversation that they've been avoiding themselves? What's one thing you would tell them?
I would tell them, well, so, and if it's you out there in podcast land, list the audience, is that the first thing that I would say is give yourself some love, some empathy, some compassion, because it is challenging, right? And you're doing I always like to say, you're doing the best that you can with the resources that you have.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
So that's the first thing is, just give yourself some empathy. And then I think the next step would be to say, what would you love to have happen out of this conversation? What would be the like, what would you love? That's the highest thing, is
Right.
what would you love the outcome to be? And just imagine, like, a lot of people are really afraid to have conversations. I work with business owners. They're afraid to have conversations with potential clients,
Well, we always
and
immediately picture worst case scenario, right? I mean, that's kind of
yeah, and they're like, well, I don't want people to think I'm pushy, or I don't want them to not like me, or, these are all saboteurs too, the pleaser. And so you instead just imagine that conversation going the way that you would love.
mm. Yeah, I plan on taking the saboteur quiz myself. I haven't yet. We're gonna set that up. That's gonna happen. But if I would have to guess, I would definitely think I'm like the overachiever one.
Oh, I'm sure you are. You
Yeah.
seem to resonate with when was making up that scenario.
I just figured it was a direct shot at me, so maybe I just gave myself away. I don't know. Yeah. Um, that's fascinating stuff. So what would you, in your own opinion, when you think of braving the bright side, what do you think braving the bright side means to you?
Well, I love the way that you say it. Like, braving the bright side is really bringing in the things that are important to you, like being vulnerable, bringing in love, bringing in empathy, bringing in that, hey, this person is actually a human being just like me, and they have beautiful needs. They may be unskillful with how they are, you know, doing it, but they are a human being with needs. And just, I think that is braving the bright side, is thinking that, rather than just saying, well, they think this way, therefore I'm going to discount them um as being other. Whenever we other people, and there's a lot of othering going on,
There's a lot of people looking
somehow. Yeah.
enemies, like
Yeah, based on race, based on where they come from, based on their gender,
hmm
uh,
hmm
that somehow you can other them. And I think that you can't, let's not other people. We're all here. And I just did the Camino. I hiked the Camino Francais, which is last fall. And it's a 500-mile, a little less than 500-mile walk or hike across from France to the Compostela.
wow.
And yeah, and you're with all these people from, as you're walking along, staying in albergues, you meet all these great people from all over the world. And the Camino really is about the way, and the way is about kindness. It's about compassion, and it's about helping each other on our journey through life. And really, I feel that that is, you know, we don't have to walk the Camino to walk the way.
Mm, yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that.
The one thing I want to leave people with is that all of us come into this world. We're unique. We're essential. We're here on this planet at this time for a particular reason. And that reason usually comes, just like people matter. So I want people to know that you matter, your dreams matter, and your dreams will change the world.
Mm, amazing. Hell yeah, River. You're doing some good stuff out there. Where can people find you out there in the world? If they want to connect with you, if they want to read about you, why don't you spit
I
some
have
facts
a
about where people can find you?
I have a YouTube channel, which is under River Easter. Ripple Effect Consulting .com is my website. And I'm on LinkedIn, which is River Easter on LinkedIn. So those are pretty much the ones I try to do.
Okay. And like I said, I'm going to link the quiz, the
Saboteur
saboteur
assessment. Yeah.
assessment on the description, so people can find that there, and then they can reach out to you from there. This has been amazing, honestly. Like, when we connected and you're like, I don't know, does this match up with you? And I was like, yeah, I think it matches up pretty good with the podcast and the audience. And I feel like we both came in here with a set of questions that we were going to ask. And one of my favorite things that happens with this podcast is it just turns into a conversation.
Yeah.
And it was just a great conversation to have. It's fascinating in terms of where you came from, and like those high octane rooms where you're kind of fighting with different people with different interests, and what kind of came out of that, and how you're able to kind of dissect the energy of these conversations, and what worked and what didn't, and how you've kind of built up this incredibly interesting concept of like conversations, and then what works, and like and how people can connect. And I think it's so important now that the phrases were more connected than ever, but yet disconnected than ever. I think what you're doing right now, what you're speaking to, is so important in this time period. And yeah, just fascinating, and absolutely love talking about that. So thank you so much for coming on here.
Well, you are welcome, and thank you for doing the work that you're doing in the world to make these conversations possible so that people can hear them, because there's probably somebody out there that really needed to hear this conversation right now. So, really being of service in the world. So thank you for starting this podcast.
That's why we do what we do, right? We're going to help the people out there for sure. Well, River, listen, this has been great. I hope you have a lovely evening, and thanks for stopping by the Brightside.
Thank you. And I love that Brightside. I love it. It's a great name.
River, thank you so much for coming by the Brightside and for such a thoughtful, open conversation. I think what I enjoyed most about this one was the reminder that empathy doesn't always mean agreement. You can stand firmly in what you believe. You can have boundaries. You can hold somebody accountable. You can even think somebody is completely spectacularly wrong and still make an effort to understand the human being standing across from you. Because understanding someone doesn't require you to surrender your own truth. I think we could all use a hell of a lot more of that right now, to put it lightly. Less showing up armed with the perfect comeback, less trying to score points, less treating every disagreement like somebody has to walk away with a trophy. Maybe just a little more curiosity about each other. So, River, thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the work you're putting into the world. And most importantly, thank you for reminding us that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply put down our defenses long enough to actually listen. And that'll do it for another trip to the bright side. As always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for sharing these conversations, and thank you for being part of this growing community. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow the show, leave a rating or review, and share it with somebody who might need to hear it. You never really know when the right story is going to find someone at exactly the right time. And if you want to become an official Brightsider, head over to bravingthebrightside.org and sign up. It's completely free. You'll get access to behind-the-scenes content, pre-sale tickets to upcoming live events, a monthly newsletter written by yours truly, and plenty more as we continue building this thing together. And while you're there, you can catch up on the podcast, learn more about everything under the Braving the Brightside umbrella, or, just drop me a line, say hello. And of course, come hang out with me on social media, because that's what we do now. You can find me on Instagram at braving_the_brightside and Braving the Brightside on both TikTok and the Facebook. Until next time, Brightsiders, keep showing up, keep looking for the light, keep finding your way forward. One step, one sunrise, one honest conversation at a time. I'll see you next time.